We're going to set up so that you can come up and grab pizza and chips. I don't know where the beverages are. They quite probably didn't make it, okay? But I'll have that set up in just a minute for you to come, and we'll go row by row to keep it from being so dysfunctional. And we have with us today Miss Lisa from Media and Communications, and she's going to talk to you about social media and how you represent yourself on social media. So once we get these started, then we'll dismiss you by rows to go ahead and get something. Please give me about 5 minutes.
No, you're fine on the side. Can you hear me in the back okay, as long as I keep my volume right about here? You good? Yeah, okay, so back, you got it. Excellent. Okay, great. My name is Lisa Waldrop, and I work in media and communication, and today I am going to spend this short time that we have together covering some things that you likely have already heard countless times, but I'd like for you today to think of it in a different way, to sort of approach it as an adult looking into the future at your career and how you can be the best version of yourself and in turn be a better buck, which is what this entire seminar series is about. So today we're going to do something super simple, and we're going to talk about minding your manners. This is just a real simple quote. Manners are the basic building blocks of a civil society. That's just a super simple snapshot of why we're doing this. We're going to talk today about building blocks 101 of minding your manners. We're going to talk about your first impressions. We're going to talk about the communication that you have with one another, as well as with your employers, with your instructors, with your peers in your classroom. We're going to talk about the responsibility that you have as a student, and in some of your cases, the responsibilities that you have as a student athlete or a member of a student organization, whatever the case may be. We're going to talk about respect, and that's not only respect for one another, but also self-respect, and making certain that what you present is what you want. And then finally, we're going to talk about kindness. And kindness will wrap it up with one very simple rule that will encompass all 5 of these building blocks, okay? So it's really easy stuff. Like I said, you've heard all this before, but I want you to critically think about where you fall within all of the areas that we're going to talk about. Really think about how you behave, how you respond, what you say, and how you interact with one another and with people that you come in contact with on campus to be certain that you are being the best version of yourself. Let's start with first impression. How many of you think that you make a good first impression just based on who you are in an everyday situation? Yeah? Pretty confident? Good. All right, let's take a look at what that means. What does your body language say? Somebody give me, I need a volunteer. Just take a risk, stand up and show. Anybody want to help me out with something? I need one. One person. Super simple. Come on. Be bold. Be courageous. You can do it. Come here. Alright, let's let Walt just kind of stand here for a second. Don't look at the screen. Alright? Okay. You're doing great. So, Walt, I want you to show me how you would just normally stand if you were going to introduce yourself to somebody or just be a part of a group. It's kind of how you do it. Yeah? What, if you wanted, let me ask, okay, cross your arms. And now I want you to kind of make a nasty face. You can do it, come on. Yeah, you don't have a nasty face, really? Alright, let's do it this way. You stand here, and what's the difference between Walt and me standing here like this? Thank you. That's exactly right. My body language, that's good, Walt. Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. That's right. That's just one example of your body language, what your body language says. And guys, I know that seems silly, and I know making Walt come up here and show you that seems kind of goofy, but I can't tell you the number of times that I see lots of students walking around, and they look pretty unhappy, just on a regular average day. And I don't know that they're unhappy. They could be having the greatest day ever, but your face and your body language tell a story. It is so important that you get in the habit of making sure that that story is a positive one. I know, all of you know what I'm talking about when I tell you that I have a resting kind of face. I don't have to finish that, you know what I'm talking about. All of you need to get in the habit of noticing your body language, noticing what your face tells about you without you communicating a word. Walt came up here, we're going to talk a little bit more about this in a moment. Expressing an interest in the people who are around you and expressing an interest in meeting someone. Did Walt, I'm not trying to pick on you, but did Walt look excited to meet me? No. Now granted, he had to come up here and get in front of all of you. I wouldn't have been excited to meet me either. But if that had been in a different situation and he had approached me as someone he didn't already know and just was kind of lackluster about approaching me, introducing himself to me, that would have communicated something as well. That lack of interest in your body language, that's what gets communicated. Did he make a lot of eye contact with me? Lucky Walt. And I'm picking on you so hard. We're going to give him a whole pizza or something to take home because I'm super picking on him. No, he didn't. Now granted, again, he wound up right up here in front of all of you, and that's completely different. But it's getting into the habit of recognizing your body language, standing up straight, presenting yourself well, making eye contact, having a firm handshake. All of those things about your body language, whether it's with a group of our employees here, or a group of your peers, or your coaches, or your advisors, guys, all those things communicate something to us about you. And you want that first impression to be positive. You want us to be able to say, oh my gosh, yeah, I mean, they just were so into it. They were excited about being here. They really convey to me an interest in their future and what's going on. Because if you make it a habit of doing these things with us, it's smiling. If you make those sorts of things a habit now, you'll do it forever. You'll do it with people who you interview with. You'll do it with people who you want to date. You'll do it as a habit. And that's what you want to get into. You want to make sure that your body language is saying exactly what you want it to. Now then, Walt, I'm going to quit picking on you. The name game. How many of you know the names of all your instructors? All of them. Yeah? Really? That's great. That is fantastic. I'm using that as an example because when I used to work with the ambassadors and I taught orientation, and I used to go through and I would introduce myself at the top of class, and then I would make everybody introduce themselves, and we would talk about things and talk about our interests or whatever. By the time I got to the end of the class, nobody could tell me my name. Every single time I did that. Nobody remembered my name. Not a single time. It is so important that you make it a habit of remembering people who are in important positions in your life. That is, how many of you, I know I do, when someone acknowledges you by name, how does that make you feel? How does it make you feel if I know your name? I mean, yeah, you feel like you're important. You feel known. And that's what you want to communicate with whoever you're talking to. So how do you do that in a way that combines your body language and combines that interest and combines that excitement and combines a positive image for you? These ways. You speak clearly and you make eye contact. You introduce yourself, and this all seems silly, I know, but it's amazing how many of you won't do this unless you think about it. You introduce yourself using your first and your last name. So if I extend my hand and say to you, hey, I'm Lisa Waldrop, how are you? What are you going to say? You can say that, yes. What's that very first bullet that's underneath that next one? Hello, who are you? Thomas Langdon. He used his first and his last name. See, it seems like I already know all this, I don't have to listen, but you do. You absolutely do. You use your first and your last name. Those are just two examples. Hello, I'm John Smith. And then, guys, it's okay when you do this, make some conversation with these folks. Whoever you're being introduced to, whoever you're meeting, well, you are like right here with me now, right? Whoever you're meeting, whoever you're being introduced to, say, hey, it's nice to meet you. Thank you so much for hosting me. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here. It is really okay for you to do those things. It's okay for some of your personality to shine through in those moments. Remembering the names of the people you meet, We talked about that, and responding to introductions appropriately. You can see there. If you're not comfortable chatting somebody up, then you have the option of simply saying, I am so delighted to meet you. Thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you so much for letting me interview. Thank you so much for letting me try out for your team. Thank you so much for letting me interview for this officer position in this organization. Guys, follow it up with some gratitude. Follow it up with some manners. It's super duper important. Any questions about any of this? I know it's simple. I get it. How many of you know what you're going to wear the next time you have something important to do? How many of you have a go-to? Good, that's good, I'm glad. How many of you, if you have an interview or something important coming up, how many of you have a go-to outfit that you know what you're going to wear? You should. That's a huge thing. That's an easy thing for you to do so that you are always prepared for anything that comes up, whether it's a job interview or an interview here on campus or an activity, whatever, an event. Always have that prepared. And some things to keep in mind. I'm going to start with what's in that left side, on that left side. I am a huge advocate for telling you that you can be whoever you want to be. I believe that. If you want to have 6 piercings in your ear and if you want to be inked from head to toe, I am A-okay with that. Truly. Now, here's the problem with that though. There are some times when, unfortunately, the perception with those things is not what you want to convey. Perception is reality. My opinion is not everybody else's. So you've got to be mindful, again, that's a part of your body language too. You've got to be mindful of the things that all your jewelry, all your fragrance, all your tattoos, all your clothes, if they say something, you've got to be mindful of the story that that's telling about you. Okay? Your clothes, the way you dress, totally up to you. You just have to remember that it tells a story. Just like your body language, just like the way you convey interest, how you present yourself, your clothes are involved in that. So, make sure that your clothes are clean and they are laundered properly. Again, I know this seems simple. I know you think I'm breaking this down to be nothing. However, if you have an iron, you need to use it if you're going for a job interview. If you've been out the night before and you've gotten a pizza stain on something, don't wear it the next day if you have somewhere important to be. Don't wear pajama pants. Make sure that you are doing things the way that you know present you in the best light possible. Neat hair and nails. Make sure they're trimmed. Whatever, they just need to look neat. Minimal jewelry. Not only because, like I said, if you have piercings everywhere, that can sometimes be distracting, but also if you're wearing lots of necklaces, that can be noisy, quite honestly. And distracting. If you have a habit of playing with your jewelry, if you have a habit of swinging something, I do. If I have a necklace on, I play with it constantly. And if that's something that you also do, just eliminate that. Don't handicap yourself with things that you can control. Don't wear that necklace. Don't wear anything. Don't take anything that could distract you. We're going to talk a lot about that when we talk about social media and your devices. But don't take anything that provides a distraction for you right off the jump. I don't know how all of you feel about fragrance, but some people have allergies, and it sends them to the moon if you wear a lot of fragrance. So be mindful of that when you go to an interview or when you're in class or when you're having an important meeting, because you don't want to be remembered solely for the fact that you had on a lot of cologne. If you're carrying a bag, male or female, if you have any sort of bag with you, please make sure that it is only for essentials, and in addition to that, make sure that you're not digging in and out of it the whole time that you're talking to somebody. All right, any questions about that, about first impressions? So body language, enthusiasm, knowing what's appropriate, and putting your best foot forward in ways that you have total and complete control over. That's pretty much, first impression is all about what you've got control over. The world can spin around you, but you have control over how you respond to it and your behavior. All right? Same thing can be said mostly of communication. So let's take a look at that next. How many of you check your device constantly? I've been really impressed, I have to say, because in just walking through here and watching all of you, you are not, right in your device the whole time. You have been very attentive, and that's impressive because that's not something, when I walk through campus often and I see a group of students, what do you think I see? I mean, yes, that's exactly what I see. I see lots of thumbs moving and I see lots of people face down in their device. If you are someone, if you know that you have a tendency or a habit of staying in your phone, guys, that's just going to have to be something you make an effort and a decision and a choice to work on. It is always going to be a temptation, and I speak from experience about that. Having your phone in your hand, if you don't want to, I understand sometimes that the temptation is great, especially if you're in a situation where you might not feel as comfortable, or you might not feel as secure, or you might not know a lot of people. If you're going into an environment where you've never been before, or you're part of a new group, that tendency to jump right into that phone as a comfort, that, I understand that. I get it. Because you know who you're dealing with here. And you don't want to put yourself out there to deal with the people you don't know. I challenge each of you to resist that temptation. Put the phone away, put the devices away, and stay in that moment with the people who are around you. Talk to the people who are around you. It's super important to develop interpersonal relationships that are not in something that looks like this. All right? If you have to take a call, does anybody still talk on the phone? Seriously, I mean, I don't. I very seldom talk on the phone. But it's just a good rule to remember. I don't talk on it very often. I don't. Text me, please. If you have to make a call or take a call, don't do it if you're sitting here with your friends having lunch. Don't accept a call or make a call while a group of people is having a conversation around you. It communicates what? What do you think I'm telling you if I pick up a phone while you're trying to have a conversation with me? What does that tell you? I don't really care. It's fine, but this is more important. My device is more important. Really resist that temptation, even if it's an important call. And if you have to take it, excuse yourself. Be mindful of your tone, be mindful of your tone, first of all, whether you're talking to someone or texting. How many of you have had to deal with the consequences of a text that you did not mean it just came out wrong? I mean, I know that I have. Right. And whether you accidentally used all caps or something got auto-corrected or whatever, we have all had to deal with that. So be mindful of your tone when you text. Be mindful of your tone when you talk. Be mindful of your volume when you talk, particularly if you're in a public place. I don't want to hear you argue with your boyfriend or your girlfriend. Nobody else does either. You wouldn't want to. So make sure that you're mindful of that. If you're at an event, whether it's on campus or off, make sure that you've changed your settings either to silent or to off. Be mindful of the fact that if you're in the theater here, or if you're in a movie theater, or if you're somewhere like right now, when the phone lights up, it's an automatic distraction. It's a distraction to you, to those around you, to the people talking. Just because it's on silent or off doesn't always mean that it's the least distracting thing possible. And then finally, just resist the temptation to look at it constantly. That's super important. All right, let's talk a little bit about the decisions that we all make on social media. I use Snap decisions mostly because I know you guys are on Snapchat all the time. I know that I'll take that back. Let me just ask, how many of you use Snapchat more predominantly than any other social media platform? I just want to get an eyeball of this. Yeah, do any of you still use text messaging more than Snapchat? Anybody? Anybody use text messaging more than Snapchat? Okay, that's more than I would have thought. Any research that we've done over time about students who are your age and who are using devices and using different social media platforms says that text messaging is sort of, you might use it every now and then with your parents or with somebody older than you, but that Snapchat is more often what you're going to use. Keep in mind that no matter what platform you're using, your social media should work for you, not against you. Your social media, even though it's yours, even though it can be a way to express yourself, even though it is a forum for free speech, even though all of those things are true and accurate, it's still a reflection of you. And you can be guaranteed that any employer now, you can be guaranteed any student organization sponsor, you can be assured that they're going to keep an eye on your social media. They are. And I mean, that's a bummer, but it is the truth. So, you need to be careful about what you're posting on there so that who you are sitting right here in front of me eating pizza today is no different than who you are on social media and who you would want me to know who you are. Okay? Let's take a look at this. Sharing private or important information. Don't do it. And I include location in that. Don't put pictures up of your apartment door or your apartment complex. Don't do that. It's a safety issue. If your pictures are public, if you don't have your photos set to be private just to your friends, and anybody can look that up, and they can search you according to your relationship status or whatever affiliation you've got, don't post your location. Don't post where you live. Here's another thing too, just a good rule of thumb. Don't post when you're going to be out of town. Don't say, hey, I'm going on a trip, my house is going to be, don't do those sorts of things. It's dangerous. When you're on a trip, when you're out and about, make safe choices about social media. Who you accept friend requests from, who you interact with. I know I sound like your mothers and your father talking to you about this morning, but it really is about trying to keep you safe. And situations and instances that can seem super innocent in the moment change very, very quickly. So be as smart as you possibly can about those sorts of things. Participating in online arguments or negative banter. I just want to see by a show of hands again, how many of you have ever had your mind changed by somebody on social media? Just show me anybody whose mind has been changed as a result of an argument that they had on social media. Got a couple. That's more than I would have thought. You know, it's rare. And more often than not, that back and forth is so destructive. It's so destructive for you and the person that you're having the argument with, and it's often super destructive for the people who are having to watch it. Refrain from that. If you must carry on a conversation with a person on social media that requires some sort of back and forth, you have the option to do it privately. Do not let keyboard courage get the better of you. Send a private message, work it out with that person. Okay? Be cautious about photos. Don't share pictures that could be harmful to you or to anybody else. Don't tag people in pictures unless you know that you have their permission to do that. Again, pictures, be smart. Be smart about where you are. Be smart about what you're doing. Be smart about what you're posting. That's part of that self-image. You want control over that. Once it's out there, it's out there. I don't have to tell you that. You can delete it, but if it's ever been out there, it's out there. And then, finally, no matter how tempted you are, no matter if you think it's funny, I don't care what the situation is, do not use language or images that are considered offensive to anybody. If for one moment you think, I don't need to share that, then don't. Period. Just don't do it. Don't take that risk. If you think, it might hurt somebody's feelings, don't do it. If you think, somebody might get mad at me, don't do it. Just don't do it. That is a mature decision that you can start making right now about your social media. Use it to your advantage. All right? Any questions about any of this? Anybody have anything to share? Any other Shelton State people have anything to share about that? All right. Responsibility. Let's talk just briefly about this. We're going to shift gears. We've talked about your first impressions. We've talked about communication. I want to talk with you a little bit about your class behavior, if you will. I have heard this over and over again over the years. This is one of the slides and one of the things that used to garner a lot of conversation with the student group that I worked with. Because, why do I have to come to class? Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? You want me to be an adult? Blah, 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 blah. On and on the conversation went. Let's talk about some of this. Why should I come to class on time? Why should I stay in that class the whole time? Nobody knows. Who's going to know if I'm there or not? Well, they do. They do. And successful students, the bottom line is that successful students are the ones who are in class. And successful students are the ones who are staying in class. They're not arriving late. They're not talking to one another in the back of the classroom while the instructor's trying to teach. They're not on their phones. They're not doing any of those things. Successful students are engaged in class. The second bullet talks about why you should always attend, even on those mornings like today, when it is rainy and gross and awful. And I would have rather stayed in bed too, I'll assure you. But you go to class because classes move quickly, and you're going to be behind the minute you miss. There are always going to be occasions when that's necessary. I understand that. When an occasion arises and you have to miss class, make certain that you are making the mature decision to contact your instructor and explain that. Find out what you missed. And I don't mean do it 2 weeks later when the midterm rolls around or 4 weeks later when it's time to take the final. Be proactive and do it immediately. Right after you've missed, contact that instructor, ask what you missed, and catch up. The other good news about that, when you show an interest like that with your instructors and you take the initiative to do that, that's a great impression. That makes a great impression on your instructor for you to do that. This third bullet is one that always sparked conversation. Why should I accept responsibility? Well, it's your future, first and foremost, of course. But how many of you have been tempted, and you don't have to raise your hands, but how many of you have been tempted to blame a bad grade on an instructor when you simply have not devoted the time that you've needed to an assignment or a test or a group project? We've all done that. I did it when I was your age, when I was in college. I did it in graduate school. We all want to throw the blame somewhere else, but if we haven't put the work in on the front side, we know where the improvements have to be made. And that language of complaining about that instructor, it's not constructive. It doesn't help you. Take responsibility and do better. Take responsibility and ask how you can improve. Talk to your instructor about that as well. They can help you move forward. If you're honest about what's going on, whether it's a situation or you feel challenged by the material, whatever, communicate that to them. And then finally, when you're in class, I would ask that you consider your responses to things that happen in class. If it's an open discussion, consider how the responses that you share, they tell your story too. They give an impression of who you are as well. And I don't mean by sharing an opinion. I just mean if you're able to communicate an opinion in a mature way that doesn't seem angry, or it doesn't seem like you're picking on someone, or it doesn't seem like you don't care about what's happening. You have to be able to communicate your thoughts and ideas in a way that's mature so that you can get to a point to understand that you're learning from one another, and then you can also agree that sometimes we're just going to disagree. Any questions on class behavior? And I know y'all know this stuff, but it's good to be reminded every now and then. What's the next slide? Oh, these are easy, do's and don'ts. Pay attention, take notes, ask questions. Eye contact, we talked about a lot of this already. Cooperate in class. When you're and y'all been great at this today. When somebody asks you in a class, when somebody asks a question, or when an instructor says, I need you to work in groups, or I need you to do this, just do it. Don't wait to be asked a second time, and don't wait to be begged to do it. Just take the initiative and do what you're asked to do. Don't slouch, don't sleep, don't text message. You know all this stuff. And the biggest one, don't pack up early. I hope that none of y'all do that, but I know everybody does it at some point in time. Just resist that temptation too. Self-respect and respect for others. We want to help everybody in this room that represents Shelton State today, and everybody that's in the building, period. We want what's best for you. We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't want what was best for you. When you meet us, when you have us in class, when you have someone as a coach, when you make that connection, when you establish that, nurture it, maintain it, because those sorts of relationships can benefit you down the road. And that's what that left-hand side talks about. When you need help while you're here, ask for it. If there's a situation after you're gone and you've maintained a connection with somebody that gave you help previously, there's no reason why you shouldn't ask again. We want to help you. We want to do that for you. As far as treating others with respect and having self-respect within yourself, that starts at the very top. I mean, and we're going to talk about this in a second. Being kind, treating others with respect, treating others the way you want to be treated, listening and following good advice. If any one of these people help you with something or encourage you to do something, follow through with that. Follow through. Use the experience that they already have that they're sharing with you to make your situation better. We talked about this before in the classroom. Accept responsibility for your mistakes. Set an example. Set an example. Make yourself a challenge make a challenge with yourself today about your device. Make a challenge with yourself today about class behavior, or when you're in practice, or when you're with a group of your friends. If there's something that you know you shouldn't be doing, just don't participate in it. Set the example. Don't be on your phone while you're eating lunch together. Don't check Snapchat 10 times while you're sitting there. Change your behavior and set the example so that somebody says, "What are you doing?" See if you can do that. Participate when you're asked, and stay informed to take advantage of opportunities. There's lots of things that you can take advantage of here. Lots of ways that you can improve the time that you spend with us. Take advantage of those opportunities, whether it's with an organization or an event or with your academics, whatever. Take advantage of the opportunities that you have here. All right. When years ago, I taught elementary school. And in our classroom, we had one rule, and it was be kind. Because I think that pretty much covers it. I can't think of anything that we've talked about to this point that be kind doesn't cover. It really doesn't. So as we talk about kindness, I want you to kind of think about it through that lens. Is there anything we've talked about before or for the rest of this time that if you choose your behavior, choose your response, choose your body language, choose your first impression, if you choose that through kindness, how that looks according to this. So, what's your story? What are you talking about with your friends? What are your topics of conversation? Are you complaining about things? Are you encouraging people that you're with? Are you making fun of folks that you're hanging out with, even in good humor, but you know that it bothers somebody? Are you doing any of those things? Pay attention to that kind of behavior. Here's a great question that I love to ask students. What would you think? If you heard yourself talking in a group, what would you think about yourself, and do you like it? Would you like you? Would you want to be your friend if you could overhear yourself in a conversation? And do you ever consider how your behavior influences the people around you? I'd love for you, not right now necessarily, but just over the course of the next several days, really think about that within the context of your relationships. Would you want to be friends with you? Because the answer should be yes. The answer should be, I absolutely would want to be friends with me. I would want to be friends with somebody who is kind and supportive and who is encouraging. You'd want to do those things. So think about that as you go through the next several weeks. And then finally, magic words. These are easy, guys. Please, thank you, I'm sorry, excuse me. You just can't overestimate or underestimate the power of those words. You really can't. It gets that simple after a while. Please, I'm sorry, thank you, excuse me. They make a world of difference. I think that is all. Questions? Anybody have any questions? And you don't have to, I know it. Anybody? I think we're going to do a we're doing some questions right now.
Okay, so what we're going to do is, I know that I think pretty much all of you start some type of practice by 2:30. We had a group that started at 2, then we had a group that had weights, and then I think you all started about 2:30 with your practice, and I headed them kind of in the right direction. Okay. We have questions that have been presented to us from the president that he wants you all's opinion on. So what we're going to do is tomorrow, before you all have to hit practice, and when we have time, because I don't want you to rush through trying to answer these questions, JB is going to work with getting all of us back together again, and we will give you the questionnaire then. It's only about 5 questions, real general stuff. We want your honest opinion on that information. But just for the sake of time, because you all have to be in practice in about 10 minutes. Is that cool? Now the flip side of that is, if you want more pizza, you're welcome to get some.